In the beginning, a narcissistic husband appears almost perfect. He knows exactly what to say, how to charm, and how to make his wife feel like she's the most special person in the world. His attention is intoxicating. Every glance, every compliment feels like sunlight. He studies her deeply, not to understand her heart, but to learn how to control it. He mirrors her dreams, her values, her desires, creating the illusion of a soulmate connection. She feels seen, valued, chosen. But what she doesn't realize is that she's being drawn into a world where everything revolves around him. As time passes, the shift begins subtly. The warmth fades, replaced by cold indifference wrapped in everyday normality. Her opinions no longer matter. Her emotions become inconvenient. He doesn't shout. He simply stops listening. He stops asking how her day was. He stops noticing when she's hurting. When she speaks, he looks at his phone or interrupts her mid-sentence. When she shares her joy, he changes the subject to himself. He begins to erase her existence piece by piece, not by violence, but by neglect. And neglect, in this case, is a weapon sharper than any blade. He thrives on attention, but only when it flows toward him. Her laughter, her ambitions, her inner light all begin to irritate him because they pull focus away from his ego, so he dims them. He dismisses her excitement with sarcasm, rolls his eyes when she tries to express something deep, and makes her feel foolish for simply wanting connection. "You talk too much," he says. "You're too emotional." These small comments, repeated often, start to rewrite the way she sees herself. She begins to wonder if she really is too much, if maybe she should stay quieter, smaller, less visible. But this invisibility isn't accidental. It's deliberate. He knows exactly what he's doing. The less she feels seen, the more she'll crave his validation. The more she craves it, the more power he holds. This is how a narcissist feeds his ego, by starving hers. He replaces intimacy with control, empathy with manipulation, and love with dominance. He doesn't want a partner. He wants a mirror that reflects his greatness back at him. The most painful part is that she remembers who he was, or at least who he pretended to be. That memory keeps her trapped, constantly waiting for the version of him that once adored her to return. But that man never existed. He was a mask, carefully designed to win her devotion. Now that he has it, he no longer needs to pretend. So he stands taller while she fades quietly beside him, feeling invisible not because she lacks value, but because he refuses to acknowledge it. Over time, she learns to shrink in rooms, to speak softly, to stop expecting kindness. She convinces herself that this is love, that love sometimes looks like patience, sacrifice, silence. But deep down, something inside her knows this isn't love at all. A narcissistic husband doesn't love the way ordinary hearts do. For him, love is not an emotion. It's a transaction, a form of control, a weapon wrapped in tenderness. In the early days, he drenches his wife in affection. He calls her his world, his miracle, his reason to live. He memorizes her weaknesses and her hopes, not to protect them, but to use them later. Every kind word, every romantic gesture becomes a future tool of manipulation. He creates a deep emotional bond, but it's a bond designed to bind her, not to hold her gently. Once she's emotionally invested, the game changes. The warmth that once felt endless turns cold overnight. He starts to ration his affection like a prize she must earn. If she disagrees, he withholds touch. If she questions him, he withdraws conversation. If she stands up for herself, he goes silent, making her feel guilty for disrupting the fragile peace. This is how he teaches her that love is conditional, that his approval is something she must chase. It's not about love anymore. It's about control disguised as care. He will say, "I do this because I love you," even when his actions are cruel. He'll twist her emotions until she doubts herself completely. When she's upset, He won't comfort her. He'll accuse her of being too sensitive, too emotional, too needy. When she wants more connection, he'll say she's suffocating him. Every attempt she makes to bring them closer becomes ammunition against her. Slowly, she learns that expressing her needs leads only to rejection. So she stops asking. She starts walking on eggshells, measuring every word, every tone, every breath. The love that once lifted her now traps her. She keeps trying to win back the man who once adored her, but he only gives small glimpses of that tenderness when he wants something in return. Attention, praise, obedience. He becomes affectionate not out of care, but out of strategy. A simple, "I love you," from him is no longer a declaration, it's a leash. And when he senses that she's slipping away emotionally, he suddenly becomes the man she fell in love with again. The charm returns, the warmth reappears, and for a brief moment, she believes he's changed. But it's a cycle. As soon as he feels secure again, the coldness returns, sharper than before. A narcissistic husband doesn't need to shout or strike to destroy his wife's confidence. He does it slowly, silently, with precision. His cruelty often hides behind charm, jokes, and concern. It begins with small comments that seem harmless. "You look tired today. Are you sure that's what you want to wear? You always get so emotional." Each remark chips away at her self-esteem, carving tiny cracks in her once strong sense of self. He knows exactly how to make her question herself without ever appearing openly cruel. And that's what makes it so dangerous. The attack is invisible. At first, she might laugh it off. She tells herself he's just teasing, that maybe she's being sensitive. But over time, the jokes become sharper and the criticism more consistent. He compares her to other women, subtly but deliberately. "She's so calm. Why can't you be like that? You used to be more fun. Everyone says I'm patient for putting up with you." These statements are not accidental, they are strategic. He uses comparison as a weapon to remind her that she's never enough, no matter what she does. When she starts to notice the pattern and calls him out, he deflects with gaslighting, one of his most powerful tools. "I never said that. You're imagining things. You always twist my words." Soon she begins to doubt her memory, her judgment, even her reality. He makes her feel like she's the problem, that her reactions are irrational and her emotions exaggerated. The more she doubts herself, the more control he gains. This is not love. This is psychological warfare disguised as a relationship. He isolates her further by making her distrust her own abilities. When she tries something new, he downplays it. "Are you sure you can handle that? You always give up anyway. I don't think that's a good idea for you." His words make her second, guess her potential, so she stops taking chances. When she fails, he says, "I told you so." When she succeeds, he says it was luck. Either way, he wins, and she loses another piece of herself. Over time, her reflection changes, not just physically, but emotionally. The vibrant, confident woman she once was becomes uncertain, quiet, hesitant. She asks for his opinion before making simple decisions. She apologizes for things she didn't do. She begins to believe that she can't function without his approval. And that's exactly what he wants. A wife who doubts herself so deeply that she depends on him for every ounce of worth. In public, he might still act loving, even protective, telling others how fragile she is, how emotional she can be, pretending to care while reinforcing the narrative that she's weak. He becomes the hero, and she becomes the problem. Yet, deep inside, she starts to feel something breaking, not from a single moment of cruelty, but from the 1,000 quiet cuts of being told, day after day, that she's never quite enough. This emotional roller coaster leaves her dizzy and disoriented. She starts to think the problem lies within her, that if she were more patient, more forgiving, more understanding, he'd love her like before. But the truth is, he never stopped loving her because he never truly started. His love is a mask, a tool, a performance. Behind every affectionate gesture is an agenda. Behind every kind word is calculation. And behind every moment of tenderness lies the quiet warning that his love can vanish the second she forgets who holds the power. A narcissistic husband is never wrong, at least not in his own mind. Accountability feels like an attack to him, and truth feels like betrayal. The moment his wife tries to confront him about his hurtful behavior, the entire conversation twists. Instead of listening, he shifts into defense, not to protect their relationship, but to protect his ego. He becomes the victim in his own story, painting himself as misunderstood, mistreated, or unappreciated. The woman who came to express her pain ends up comforting the very man who caused it. It often begins with denial. "I never said that. You're exaggerating. You always make me the bad guy." He changes the narrative so skillfully that she begins to wonder if maybe she really did misunderstand him. Then, when denial isn't enough, he escalates into emotional manipulation. He'll sigh deeply, act wounded, and say things like, "I try so hard, but you never see it," or "I can't do anything right with you anymore." He'll look sad, defeated, and somehow she's the one who feels guilty. What started as her attempt to find peace becomes an emotional maze where she's the villain and he's the victim. He knows that her empathy is his greatest weapon. She's caring, compassionate, and wants harmony. So he uses her empathy against her, making her believe that her confrontation is cruelty. He'll say, "I can't believe you think I'd hurt you on purpose." Or, "You're so cold lately. What happened to you?" These statements turn her pain into proof that she's changed, not him. It's psychological inversion. Every truth she speaks becomes twisted into an accusation against her. And the longer this continues, the more she starts to doubt her right to speak up at all. When he senses that she's emotionally breaking, he adds a touch of drama to regain full control. He might raise his voice, slam a door, or storm out of the room. Other times, he'll cry, not out of remorse, but to redirect the attention back to himself. His tears are calculated, his silence strategic. He knows how to make her feel like the cruel one for simply asking for respect. She ends up apologizing, holding him, reassuring him, when all she wanted was to be heard. This cycle repeats every time she tries to hold him accountable. The result: she learns that honesty leads to conflict, that expressing hurt leads to chaos, and that silence, though painful, is safer. Her voice fades because every time she tries to use it, it gets twisted into noise. He teaches her over time that peace only exists when she agrees with him, and so she stops confronting him. She bottles her pain, swallows her anger, and walks on eggshells, hoping to keep the calm. But deep inside, she knows that the peace she's keeping isn't peace at all. It's submission, forced by manipulation, and disguised as love. A narcissistic husband doesn't see his wife as a partner. He sees her as competition. Her success, her joy, even her confidence feels like a threat to his fragile ego. In his world, there can only be one star, and it has to be him. When she shines, he feels smaller. When she grows, he feels replaced. So instead of celebrating her victories, he looks for ways to reclaim the spotlight. What should be a partnership built on encouragement turns into a quiet battlefield where every achievement she makes becomes an unspoken challenge to his authority. At first, his competitiveness might seem playful. He might tease her about small things: who earns more compliments, who's busier, who gets more attention from friends or family. But slowly, those jokes turn sharp. When she accomplishes something meaningful, he downplays it, "That wasn't such a big deal," or "You just got lucky." If others praise her, he rolls his eyes or changes the subject to himself. When she's proud, he finds flaws. When she's excited, he finds reasons to doubt her. Every success she experiences becomes a silent reminder to him that she might not need him as much. And that thought terrifies him. He masks his insecurity with arrogance. He'll say things like, "I could have done that better," or "You should have asked for my advice first." He needs to reassert dominance to prove he's still the superior one. If she gets attention, he'll subtly sabotage it, interrupting her stories, correcting her unnecessarily, or dismissing her opinions in front of others. To the outside world, it might look like harmless teasing, but to her, it feels like constant dismissal. She begins to hide her achievements just to avoid his disapproval. The most insidious part is how he makes her feel guilty for wanting to succeed. He'll call her too ambitious, accuse her of neglecting him, or claim she's becoming selfish. If she spends time on personal goals, he'll act hurt or jealous, saying things like, "You're always busy now. What about us?" He disguises control as concern, making her feel torn between growth and love. Slowly, she learns to dim her light to protect his comfort. She gives up opportunities, silences her dreams, and convinces herself that keeping the peace is more important than following her potential. But the more she shrinks, the more he criticizes her for not being enough. "You've changed," he says. "You used to be more confident." He destroys her confidence when she has it, then mocks her when it's gone. It's a cruel cycle. He breaks her wings, then laughs when she can't fly. What he fails to understand is that real love thrives in mutual growth, not competition. Yet to him, her success is not shared joy, it's personal defeat. He doesn't want a woman beside him. He wants one beneath him, clapping while he takes the stage. And so she stands quietly in the background, applauding a man who cannot stand to see her shine. A narcissistic husband fears stability more than anything else. Peace threatens him because peace means he no longer controls the emotional temperature of the relationship. So he creates chaos, deliberately, strategically, and continuously. His moods shift like storms, unpredictable and intense. One day he's warm, affectionate, and charming. The next he's cold, distant, and cruel. His wife never knows what version of him she'll wake up to. This emotional unpredictability keeps her off balance, trapped in a constant state of anxiety. She becomes so focused on managing his emotions that she forgets her own. He uses confusion as a form of control. When things are calm, he stirs trouble, accusing her of things she never did, bringing up old arguments, or twisting her words into new conflicts. If she's happy, he finds a reason to ruin the mood. If she's peaceful, he plants doubt. He feeds off emotional reactions, whether it's anger, tears, or fear, because those reactions remind him that he still has power over her. The more unsteady she feels, the stronger he feels. His chaos isn't random, it's a tactic. He might start an argument out of nowhere and then act as though nothing happened minutes later. This whiplash leaves her mentally spinning. She starts to question whether she's overreacting or imagining things. One moment he's tender, the next he's indifferent. And when she tries to ask why, he calls her dramatic. This constant push and pull conditions her to crave his calm moments as though they're rewards, not realizing they're just breaks between storms he intentionally creates. The emotional chaos extends beyond arguments. He uses silence as punishment and attention as bait. Sometimes he'll ignore her for days without explanation, forcing her to beg for his acknowledgement. When she finally apologizes for things she didn't even do, he grants her warmth again, not because he's forgiving, but because he's victorious. This emotional starvation keeps her dependent on his approval. She begins to believe that peace only comes when he allows it. He might also create tension between her and others, planting seeds of doubt about her friends or family. "They don't really like you," he'll whisper, or "I'm the only one who understands you." Slowly, he isolates her emotionally, ensuring that he's her only source of comfort and conflict. She becomes trapped in a toxic loop where the person who causes her pain is also the only one who can make it stop. Over time, this emotional chaos reshapes her nervous system. Her body stays tense, her heart races at the sound of his footsteps, her mind anticipates the next argument before it begins. She learns to read his moods like a survival skill, analyzing every glance, every sigh, every silence. She forgets what calm feels like because calm never lasts. He thrives in the chaos he creates because in that storm, he remains the center, the eye of destruction around which her entire emotional world revolves. Over time, the emotional damage caused by a narcissistic husband doesn't just bruise the heart, it breaks the spirit. What begins as confusion and hurt slowly turns into numbness. The woman who once laughed freely, dreamed boldly, and loved deeply starts to disappear. She becomes a shadow of herself, walking through life carefully, speaking softly, existing quietly. And when that transformation finally shows on her face, when the light in her eyes begins to fade, he doesn't take responsibility. Instead, he looks at her brokenness and says, "You've changed." This is the cruelest irony of all. He breaks her, then blames her for being broken. He points to her exhaustion as proof that she is the problem. "You're always sad," he says. "You're so negative lately." He treats her pain as inconvenience, her silence as failure. What he never admits is that her sadness is a reflection of his cruelty. Her quietness is the result of years spent walking on eggshells. Every tear she sheds was drawn by his indifference. Every doubt she carries was planted by his manipulation. Yet somehow, in his twisted narrative, he's the victim and she's the ungrateful one who ruined the relationship. The tragedy is that she often believes him. When you live in emotional warfare long enough, you begin to internalize the blame. She starts to think she's the reason the marriage is failing, that she's too emotional, too sensitive, too weak. The constant gaslighting and criticism have trained her to mistrust her own perception. So when he says, "You're the one who's changed," she believes it. What she doesn't realize is that the woman she used to be didn't die. She was suffocated under the weight of his control. He, however, feels powerful in her weakness. Her dependence feeds his ego. When she cries, it confirms his control. When she stays, it justifies his dominance. And when she finally starts to crumble, he sees her fragility not as something he caused, but as something he must tolerate. He might even parade his suffering to others, claiming he tried everything but she became impossible to live with. He turns her pain into his pity story, her breakdown into his alibi. But beneath that exhaustion, a quiet truth begins to grow inside her, a small, trembling realization that this is not love. That love doesn't make you feel worthless, scared, or invisible. That love doesn't drain your soul to feed someone else's ego. She begins to see that healing doesn't mean fixing him, it means freeing herself. The road to recovery is long and lonely, but every step away from him is a step back toward herself. Her laughter returns slowly. Her confidence, fragile but real, begins to rebuild. She starts remembering who she was before the manipulation, before the fear, before the silence. And when she finally looks in the mirror and recognizes herself again, she realizes the truth. He didn't destroy her. He only tried to. Her spirit was never gone, only buried. And now it's rising, stronger, wiser, and free. True freedom isn't about escaping him. It's about returning to herself. She no longer seeks validation or fears silence. Her heart, once chained by manipulation, now beats with peace. She doesn't rise for revenge, she rises for rebirth. Her healing isn't loud, it's quiet, powerful, and finally her own.